do you think that the negotiations between the United States and Russia will bear fruit?
No, I'm not optimistic about it, because I think that there's a hold that Vladimir Putin has on Donald Trump. I don't know what it is. I can only speculate. It's not a PP tape. That's not enough to demolish Trump.
Yep.
It has to be something way more significant than that. This is a rich guy, Donald Trump, worth billions of dollars. He's running the most successful economy. It's still the largest economy in the world. He's got the most powerful military, and yet he's kowtowing to Vladimir Putin, and he does it consistently. He'll throw out a flare here or there, guys, and say, don't do this, Vlad, or don't do that, but he doesn't really mean it. He's just trying to do that to throw people off the scent of his love affair with Putin. But I think there's Kompromat, and I'll just say something to you guys. On the evening of his election, November the 5th, they were running naked pictures of his wife on Russian national television.
This is 2016.
No. This is 2024, November the 5th, election night. Congratulations, Donald Trump. And they showed naked pictures of Milan. You can find it on YouTube. And it's signaling. They're signaling to him that they've got something on him, and they're flexing on him. And he's nervous about it. And anybody, listen, there's an expression, I'll share with you guys. When the window's open and you hear clippity-clop, it's a horse. It's not a zebra. Okay, you don't have to overthink this thing. So, no, I'm not optimistic about it. Rubio's out there saying he's going to put sanctions on. Those will not happen under Donald Trump. We barely got the Russian election sanctions signed by Trump in 2017. Yeah. And so he barely signed them. He only knew that his signing of the bill or vetoing the bill would be overridden by the Congress. Otherwise, he wouldn't have signed it.
That's
I'm not optimistic.
Incredibly good question, John. It's an incredibly serious claim that you think that somehow, the Russians have enough Kompromat on the President of the United States to mean that he is willing to help the Russians.
I don't think that's breaking news, though, Tom. I think that's a well-established thing. We don't know what it is, but you're telling me he just loves Russian nationalism? You're telling me that he wants to disavow the NATO alliance and rebuke every single one of our allies, which has been a storied 80-year tradition for the United States, actually going all the way back to the First World War. So we'll call it 110 years. So, no, I mean, I'm not saying anything that's breaking news. No. I believe it. I just don't know what it is.
You look at pictures from the Oval Office, which you've been in, Anthony, I think. You must have been in a load of times with the president himself. What's all the gold about?
This is he's like President Liberace, right? I mean, he loves the gold in a way that no one. I mean, if you go to his apartment at Trump Tower, it's like Louis XIV smoked crystal meth and then decorated the apartment. You've never seen anything like this. So, I think it's interesting. He wasn't willing to do that in Trump 1. And so he was a much more cautious leader in Trump 1. He had a lot of establishment people around him, but they've evacuated. And now Trump 2 is about letting Trump be Trump. Trump 1 was like, okay, the guy's nuts, let's control him. See what I mean? Now it's like, okay, there was a MAGA purity test to get into the cabinet. And I think the Oval Office reflects what he's doing with the presidency. It's his presidency. It's his house. That was the people's house. But in his mind, it's his house. He's going to pave over the Rose Garden. He's going to build a ballroom.
He's going to have a jet delivered to him by the...
that's not going to happen. I'll bet money on that one.
Do you think Elon Musk is going to leave the White House?
Well, he's already out. I mean, he said to the Qataris at their investment forum yesterday that he's done with the political donations, not going to make any more of those. He's lightly touching Doge now, but he's gone back to his businesses. And, it took about 12 weeks or so, but he's more or less out of the situation. But he has significantly damaged himself, Tom. Just 30 seconds on Musk stats. When the Model S came out, people were asked, do you know Elon Musk? 71% of the Americans above the age of 18 said, yes, we know him. Do you have a positive opinion of him? 70% of those people said yes. So 49% of the Americans liked Elon Musk. He was our Tony Stark. Today, 91% of the people know him. He has a 67% negative approval rating. So he's really hurt himself, and he's hurt his brands. And I'm going to use the Dr. Evil thing here, put my finger. He's lost $100 billion working for Trump. And by the way, he thinks Trump is an imbecile. and I'll just give you evidence of that. He put out a tweet on Peter Navarro saying that he was as dumb as a bag of rocks and he's sorry to the bag of rocks. But if you look at Trump's fingerprint and Navarro's fingerprint on trade, they're identical fingerprints. It was a way for him in his on the spectrum sort of a way to hit Trump for the trade situation that has hurt most American companies.
Did you see Trump being a dumb guy? Did you think he was a dumb guy?
He's not a dumb guy. No, this guy is not a dumb guy. This guy is incredible. You can't get to the White House being dumb.
No.
He may have a learning issue. He may not be a great reader, but he assimilates information aesthetically. He's actually a very good listener, better than people think. And he's got good political instincts, probably top-tier political instincts. Definitely not a dumb guy, but he is a malevolent guy. He wants to harm people, and he wants you and I talking about him. The two things that motivate Trump are attention and money. And those are the two things.
Let's get your calls. Simon's in Southampton. Simon.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Mr. Mooch. Big
How
fan.
are you, Simon?
I'm good. It's actually quite humbling to speak to you. But anyway, look,
sweet of you.
I'm absolutely sick and tired of bad people being rewarded. And I was banking on Trump spending the rest of his life behind bars. And then this happened. So my question is this. When this is all out of the way and done and dusted, if he ever does leave the White House, what are the chances of him in the future getting his comeuppance that he deserves and ending up in prison for the rest of his life?
Such a great question. And so I'll be brief on this, Simon, but I will just say this to you. He's pushing the envelope very hard. He says we're in a golden age, and I think we are in a golden age. It just happens to be
in a golden White House.
It's a golden White House, but it happens to be the golden age of corruption. And so he keeps pushing the envelope harder and harder. He's now running the risk if he loses the midterms, if he lost the House, harder for him to lose the Senate. But if something catastrophic were to happen to the economy, he loses those two chambers. He gets impeached, he gets convicted, and there will probably be tribunals related to the level of rampant corruption. So I'm optimistic at the bare minimum that the system of the government, the lobbying community, America's large corporations will contain him. I'm not necessarily saying
so. Not the cabinet, not his aides, not the advisors.
They're all in the tank for him.
The bond market containment.
Like I said, they have bond market containment. Yeah. Lobbyists, remember, the American CEOs won't say anything bad about Trump, but they're lighting up the lobbyists with dough. And they're saying, go to the Congress and tell them to make Trump stop this, or I'm at an automotive company, get me a carve out on this tariff or that tariff. And so the system is going to work to stop him. So I'm optimistic about that. I'm not optimistic that he ever goes to jail, frankly, because he's an American president. I think it'd be very hard for the country to put whatever you think of him. And I'll just be brief on this, but just so you know, Teddy Kennedy, the former senator, now deceased, said that Jerry Ford made the right decision to pardon Nixon. He didn't think so at the time. He wrote this in 2009, 35 years after the pardon. You don't want to create a kangaroo court banana republic system where we're jailing each other because there are political adversaries. Even if he deserves to be jailed, he most likely will not be.
I love Donald Trump. I was so excited at the election night. I was leaping about the house when I realised what was actually happening, because I just have always found him so entertaining and funny. He makes me smile. He makes me laugh even in the darkest moments of my own. And I kind of nothing political at all. The Coca-Cola buzzer, is it true? Is there actually a buzzer on his desk in the White House?
That's totally true. There's a box. And there's a red button on the box, and this is the part. Remember, there are 80 million people that voted for him, and so there are people that like him. I don't like the policies, as I mentioned. If you heard the early part of the show,
I've been listening to everything you said.
So there's a charm about him.
In jail,
but if he took you into the Oval Office, he would say, "See this button? This is the nuclear bomb button." Then he'd start pressing it. And, of course, the valet would come in with a Diet Coke for him, and that was a joke inside the White House.
It's a good question, Helen. The first time I met Trump when he was president was at the G20 in Hamburg in, I can't remember, 2017, perhaps 2016. And I was amazed.
17.
Yeah, 17. I saw him, he walked into the room where we were having this meeting. And he comes in, and all the cameramen and all his team, Yankee White carrying the nuclear football comes in behind him in full suit. And then there's a waiter running in behind him with a silver tray and a little doily and a tiny little bottle of Diet Coke. It's everywhere then. You can't keep it off.
Yeah, he's a big Diet Coke drinker.
He's not an alcohol drinker.
Well, I think the reason why he's a vigorous 79-year-old, this is a health and beauty tip for everybody out there. If you don't drink and you don't smoke, and he doesn't do either of those two things, you can eat a lot of McDonald's French fries and be just fine.
You know the new Pope, Pope Leo, he's American. Is he the perfect foil or antidote to Trump? Will he prove to be a perfect foil to him?
I hate keep saying great question, but these are great questions. And so the Pope is actually a very interesting guy. I have the opportunity to have some insight into him because I'm a Roman Catholic, practicing Catholic, sort of worked on the renovation of the St. Patrick's Cathedral, have a lot of Catholic friends that know the Pope. I would say that the Pope is going to be a great healing force. And I will just say something very quickly about this. The Vance situation, if you notice, sir, Vance went to see Pope Francis, and then he flew over there for the inaugural Mass. Why is he doing that? He knows he's on the wrong side as a Roman Catholic, and you have 50 million Roman Catholics in the United States above the age of 18, 32 million of which are registered to vote. And in our church, if the Pope turns on one of these candidates, it could cost him the election. This is why Vance is keeping the move on. And I think the Pope, if you go back through his Twitter feed or some of his writings, is very anti-MAGA. And so, yes, and remember, Joseph Stalin once said, what of the Pope? He has no armies. But he didn't meet John Paul II, who worked with Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan to bring down the Iron Curtain. So I think the Pope is going to be a formidable force. And I'm very, very proud that he's an American Pope, and I think he's going to do a great job.
It was interesting, too, that one of the suggestions for where the Russia-Ukraine talks could happen from Trump was at the Vatican.
Yeah, see, they're
leaning in.
Yes, they're leaning in. They also know that they upset the Orthodox Catholic community by putting out that AI image of Trump. I would just say this to you. Imagine
Trump dressed as the Pope.
Dressed as the Pope. But I would just say to you, imagine, guys, that he did something like that related to Allah or related to Muhammad. And think about the reaction. There would probably be a fatwa against him. But the Catholics that are Orthodox really did not like that, which is why Vance has showed up a couple of times and why Trump is considering these ideas about getting closer to the Vatican.
And that's the political sense that you were talking about earlier. When we say, is Trump stupid, is he dumb? Your knowledge of him, you're working with him, he's not stupid. He has political antenna. And that political antenna, I have to tell you, I think is unbelievably strong.
No question. I think remember, he was a reality television star. 18 months later, he's in the American presidency. He loses the presidency. He's indicted in 3 different major cases. He's convicted as a felon. He returns to the presidency. And remember what he did last fall. He went on all those podcasts. You can't win the American presidency without being a risk taker. The vice president, she was not a risk taker. Wouldn't go on Fox. Wouldn't do the Bro podcast like Rogan. And so you have to give Trump credit for his political instincts. Now, I call Trump the Napoleon of the culture war. He can see the battlefield better than the Democrats, and he knows how to trigger them. And when you send AOC and Bernie off to do these rallies, he's laughing because he knows the country's not that far to the left. But I would submit to people, who is the Wellington? Who is the Wellington on the Democratic side that can understand the fight and bring the fight back to Trump and his MAGA minions?
Welcome to the Democratic Party learn going forward, or anyone else coming after Trump to prevent a far-right government in America?
Well, I mean, the best thing that Donald Trump has going for him are the Democrats. They're in disarray. They're in civil war. We've learned from Jake Tapper and his co-author that the president was cognitively impaired. It's quite obvious, but there was a cover-up to that. And so what I would say to you, if I were a Democrat, I'm not a Democrat, but if I were, open the tent, bring more people in, make it a pro-democracy, pro-America party. But they won't do that. They're too self-righteous. They fight with each other over policy rather than uniting with each other over purpose. And so if they did that, they united over purpose, they could take on the MAGA team, but they'd have to grow the party. And they have to take risks, and she wasn't willing to take them. Yeah. And so those are the big things I would do to change it. Really good question.
The political advert during the last election Kamala Harris is for they, them, Trump is for you is one of the most effective political adverts possibly of my lifetime. On President Biden.
The transgender ad was even more effective.
Yeah.
And by the way, there were 4 or 8 people that were transgender that played in women's sports. Trump made it like it was a national nightmare. And you see what I mean about being the Napoleon of the culture war? He spent hundreds of millions of dollars on those ads, triggering people that were center-right conservatives.
Sure.